Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Big Ten Talk. I'm here today with the host of the Big Ten Huddle podcast, Zack Gugenheim. Zack, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Doing great. Thanks for having me, Emily.
Yeah, of course. I am super excited to talk to you today. But first, just for those who are watching and tuning in, can you tell us a little bit about your podcast?
Yeah, so John Rhodes and I, as well as Jeff McMichael, we all are part of the Big Ten Huddle. John Rhodes is kind of our grand poobah, if you will, of the podcast, and he started it probably 2 years ago. Asked me to come on as a co-host, probably about a year and a half ago. And it's on YouTube, Spotify, and we love just breaking down the Big Ten. We are very much pro Big Ten, very much trying to take down SEC bias, get that out of here, which I'm sure we'll talk about maybe a little bit in the playoff.
Right.
But yeah, we just love having a good time. We love talking about different talking points, breakdown news, all that type of stuff.
Yeah, that sounds great. Amazing content. Definitely check it out, you guys, if you haven't yet. I highly recommend it. And I am super excited to have you here to kind of just talk about what we saw this weekend in the Big Ten Conference Championship game, as well as kind of take a look at the different playoff paths for the three teams who have made the playoffs, as well as the interesting bowl matchups. So we're going to start with the conference championship game. Kind of just to kick things off, I would love to hear your thoughts on, did that go the way you thought it would? What impressed you the most? Kind of your overall thoughts on how both teams played.
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, there are a couple really good questions there. So one, did it go the way I thought? I picked Ohio State 38-21. So no, it did not go the way I thought. It did go the way John, the co-host, he picked it right. He picked Indiana to win. I think the thing that shocked me was just how good Bryant Haynes did in coaching that defense. Mm-hmm. So those linebackers, Elijah Hardy, Isaiah Jones, and Aiden Fisher. I mean, they were after the running backs. They were great in coverage, did a great job on horizontal routes all game. And man, they just trigger so well. That defense did a great job of confusing Julian Sayin, especially early in that first half. So much so, like my expectation of the game was the thing that I noticed about Indiana against you guys, against the Ducks, against the Nittany Lions, against Iowa, is that there was a little bit of a freeze point, or at least what felt like a freeze point in the running game. And I thought that was going to happen and that Indiana would not be able to outscore. And if you told me they scored 13, I'm like, Ohio State's going to win the game.
Right.
What I did not expect was that defense to hold Ohio State the way they did.
Yeah. Wildly impressive. I'm definitely with you. It's not that I didn't think Indiana could win. I've just been praising Ohio State's defense all season long, that I thought they'd be able to stop them enough, and then I thought Ohio State's offense would make up for it, basically. So the fact that they were able to hold Ohio State to 10 points is wildly impressive. And Indiana really came to play the game. It's like once they got there was no stopping them. And I am just really impressed with that. Am I frozen?
You are frozen. I don't know if that's me or you. What happened there?
There's like a storm going on a little bit, kind of ish. So I was kind of worried about how that was going to impact today, but hopefully we're good. So yeah, just really overall impressed with that. And kind of like taking a look at the playoff run, do you have any wild predictions in terms of how you think Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon will play?
So there is a little how do I say it? There's like post-traumatic stress. And that's not the right term because it's college football, but that's what it feels like. So 2006, I was a college junior at the time. Ohio State, Michigan, 1 and 2. They're clearly the two best teams in the country. Right. It should be a rematch, but instead it's Florida. And then both Ohio State and Michigan get smoked by Florida and USC, respectively. And so that in the back of my mind, I'm like, that's not going to happen again. my eyes and the data tells me I think we're in for a very pro Big Ten run. So,
Yeah.
I mean, just you look at FPI, not that the FPI is the end all be all, but there is a significant jump between Indiana, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Oregon, and then everybody else.
Right.
Same thing with Sagarin. So it's interesting to me because I think the only team outside of that where I'd be really, really concerned in kind of disrupting those four, and of course Notre Dame's not in, is Georgia.
Right.
Because Georgia, and I think Georgia is really starting to amp up. So, but
Yeah.
I like all three teams. I think are bordering on elite, if not elite, and I really I like them. We were talking about it last night, and I'm curious, where is Oregon in your mind as a fan? Because I think we had thoughts of like if they do these things, we think that they might be the national championship. But kind of where are you? Where are Oregon fans on that?
Well, Zach, I am very used to Oregon breaking my heart in the postseason, so I don't necessarily allow myself to think that far ahead. I feel relatively good about Oregon. I love that Oregon is kind of jumping right in against JMU. I understand that, but I think it'll be good to kind of get, the football going again and kind of get them in the mode to continuously play, considering the season is longer now and they're going to have more matchups than they would otherwise in the postseason. So I am feeling more optimistic, especially compared to last season, which obviously did not work in our favor by winning the Big Ten championship game and then having so much time off and then playing Ohio State in January. So I definitely think JMU is kind of like a good test for Oregon to it's like a good test, like a good first round test, basically, to like play JMU,
Mm-hmm.
get in the swing of things, and basically prepare for. I think the matchup would be what Texas Tech after round one.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of prepare for that matchup, which I think that would be a really fascinating game. People have been comparing it to Liberty when we played them in the Fiesta Bowl in 23. Yeah. And statistically, those aren't necessarily the same two teams when you compare 2023 Liberty to 2025 JMU. But I do, regardless, think it would be a good matchup for Oregon to prepare for Texas Tech.
Yeah. Well, and it'll be interesting too because JMU just lost Chesney, and
Yeah.
obviously you guys, you're in a coaching change. Is Lapoy and Will Stein, are they sticking around for
Yes.
the run? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Both
so
of them
not
will be
the
around for the playoff run.
okay. Yeah. So it'll be some coaching transition for sure. But yeah, should
Absolutely.
be a fun atmosphere in Austin for
Absolutely.
sure.
Yeah. Hosting a playoff game, like that's something we couldn't even say a few years ago. So that's like really exciting. But I agree with you. I think the playoffs are poised for obviously a really strong Big Ten presence, but kind of what you alluded to, the prospect of Georgia and kind of just how they're playing recently is a little scary.
Yeah. Yeah. I was watching Georgia, Alabama, and my thought was, man, if they were coached better, it was my
Yeah.
thought. Like I'm scared. Same thing with Alabama. I'm like, if they were better coached, because that's the one thing about both those teams is they can look bad all year, but athletically, just
Yeah.
from recruiting rankings, the way
Right.
they play, you're like, I don't know if I want to play them right now.
Right. Absolutely. I totally hear you because I said something similar to somebody the other day, just like they're turning it on at the right time. And that can be scary
Mhm.
for those who are going to match up with them in the playoffs.
Yeah,
But yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, I obviously don't love the fact that Indiana beat Oregon, but kind of the story of Indiana and what a historical season it has been for them is kind of fun to follow along. And it's great for that program and that fan base and that community. And so I think a lot of eyes are on Indiana right now. And then if Mendoza goes on to win the Heisman, which I'm not sure what those odds sit at today, but if he goes on to win the Heisman, like that makes for even more historical program or more historical
yeah.
season for that program.
It's amazing. My in-laws are actually from Indiana. They live 30 minutes from the campus. It's really neat to see what
Yeah.
is going on there. Going back to that Big Ten championship game for a minute, Mendoza, like we knew, like Mendoza was awesome against Oregon, right? Through the pick, it
Right.
broke your guys' hearts in Autzen. But like the way he played and responded from that interception against Penn State, and then to do what he did against Ohio State late in that game, throwing that ball up to Charlie Becker, it's like, man, this guy, and like, how can you not love him? Like he's genuine. He
Right.
loves this game. Like everything that's good about college football is like, yeah, I just am a big Mendoza fan. I hope he wins the Heisman. I hope it doesn't go to Pavia. That's like the worst. I'm
Right.
like, just get rid of the Heisman if Diego Pavia wins the award. I don't know. It's nothing against him, but
No,
I'm
I hear
Team
you.
Mendoza all the way.
Absolutely. And just kind of how we have seen Mendoza consistently play this season has been wildly impressive. Like you mentioned, the Penn State game, having to bring his team or pull his team to a win basically in that game was wildly impressive. Coming to Autzen and winning in the fashion they did was impressive. And then, yeah, his poise and their performance in the conference championship game was just really fun to watch. And it kind of really was a good symbol of how they've been playing all season long, and I'm curious to see how that continues for them in the playoffs because,
Mhm.
I know they're in the playoffs last season, but it's kind of like you are number one now and like all eyes are on you currently. And so people are going to want to see how Indiana is able to compete with these bigger teams and with these more competitive teams compared to some of the teams they met in the regular season. So yeah, it's going to be fascinating. I'm excited, and hopefully it ends up well for the Big Ten. I'm not usually like that. I'm not usually like a conference homer or a conference like I want everything about my conference and I root for everything in my conference. But in the postseason and the playoffs, it kind of looks a little different.
Yeah. So obviously Oregon, you're in year two of
Yeah.
the Big Ten. Has that been weird then, like switching from Pac-12 to Big Ten, like switching conference allegiance there?
No, not necessarily. And maybe because I was never super great at conference allegiance, but I was really excited. I was really excited for Oregon to move to the Big Ten. And I know people have like differing opinions on that and kind of the overall general landscape of college football. But I knew, kind of just knowing the direction it was going in, realignment was a thing regardless. I knew that I wanted Oregon to end up in the Big Ten. And I just knew that that would be the most beneficial for them in the long run and for the state and health of the program. And it's kind of interesting. Like I've talked about this a few times this season. Like one of the exciting things is all the different matchups we're getting and the new history that you get to build with these teams. And like Oregon traveling to Iowa this season to play Iowa, it's
Hmm.
like that's something we would have never even thought of a few years ago. Like if you told me Oregon was playing Iowa, I would assume that was in a bowl game I was not happy to be in, and I was not very thrilled with how the regular season went. No offense to Iowa, but now we get those cool matchups. It was a great game, very cool atmosphere, great fans, and like just really cool traditions that stadium and that program has. So it's cool. Like you get to build different history with these different programs that we're a part of. And so I actually find it particularly cool. And it kind of alludes back to that whole topic of like Big Ten versus SEC, which I know you mentioned a few minutes ago.
Yep. Yep. Well, and they're the two most stable conferences. And going back to that Iowa game, I feel like Purdue, or not Purdue, Indiana, aside from the Big Ten title game, kind of had an easier slate at the end of the season. Ohio State had an easier slate, maybe
Right.
aside from Michigan. Oregon, you guys did not, right? Like you guys had Iowa, Minnesota, but then USC and at Washington. And I'm like,
Right.
and you guys are like dealing with so many injuries right now.
Right.
It's insane how you guys navigated that, especially the road games, like at Iowa, at Washington. Like that was a rough stretch to clinch the 5 seed.
It was stressful, Zach. I'm not going to lie. As a true hater of USC and UW, having those be our last two, I was like, oh man, I can't even think about playoffs right now. Like, I just need Oregon to get through
Yep.
these last two games because I think I talked too much trash to both of those fan bases to not win. That would not have been good for me. So it was stressful. It was a stressful November. End of
But now
November.
it's the holidays,
Right
it's
now,
Christmas season.
exactly. I'm like, okay, now playoffs. Now we can talk about
There
that
we go.
because yeah, it was difficult. I mean, you mentioned the road games, you mentioned the injuries, like absolutely. And Indiana, yeah, they ended their season with who, like Purdue? Is that who they ended with? Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Ohio State obviously has a big game against Michigan, but that was probably maybe their biggest, besides Texas in the beginning, probably their biggest conference game
yep,
this regular
yeah,
season.
for sure.
So, I mean, that's always an exciting one too, but I think that went the way we all thought it was going to go. So, no surprises there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been fascinating. It's been fun. But yeah, I'm excited for playoffs. And then we also have some pretty interesting bowl matchups. Have you gotten a chance to take a look at those? I'm sure you have.
I have, but I'm going to look them up here. I
Yeah,
know
I
the
have.
one that I know for sure, right, is Penn State is playing Clemson in
Yeah,
the what should have been the national championship game, but instead of the Pinstripe
I
Bowl.
know. It's funny, like life comes at you fast, right?
Oh my gosh. So
Right.
I live in state or an hour from State College.
Okay.
I used to live in State College.
Okay.
And it's wild because like last year we during the playoff run, I was talking with friends. I was at a conference with some friends of mine who work at Penn State, and they're like, we should fire Franklin. I'm like, dude's in the semifinals tonight. They're playing Notre Dame. What are you talking about? I was like, they're not going to win. And I think that whole thing, it's been coming for years. And then I think Northwestern and
You-
UCLA were kind of that was like the catalyst, like, okay, this is done.
Yeah.
Um, but man, did they get lucky or what landing Matt Campbell at Iowa State? Like,
It
I don't
was
know how they
looking
did it.
real dark there for a few weeks. Like everyone else was
Yeah.
hiring people and everyone was like, I have no idea who Penn State's gonna hire. And then
Yeah.
I mean, to pull off the level of like Matt Campbell is definitely wildly impressive, but he's walking into a
Mhm.
very interesting situation
Yeah.
that he has to navigate. And it's so interesting, like that whole debate of like, should they fire Franklin? Should they not? It's interesting to talk to different fan bases about this because you have fan bases who are probably consistently winning like 7-8 games a season and they're like, man, if my head coach was consistently winning 10 going 10-2, I'd be thrilled. And it like speaks to
Mhm.
the different levels and different tiers of college football, obviously, but we won't know maybe for a couple of years if they made the right decision in Matt Campbell in firing Franklin and hiring Matt Campbell or not. But it's one of those things I think that are unique to college football that
Yeah.
makes up for a lot of our content and a lot of our discussions.
Yeah. I I have I have angered many an Iowa fan for being upset that I say they settle. And
Oh yeah.
I like Kirk Ferentz a lot. I
Yeah.
think, but I've also been on the what our viewers of our show call as the retirement tour. And I'm like, he's great, and he'll be greater in retirement when he leaves, and lets Iowa
Right.
maybe ascend and evolve. Which it may not always be. It may not be the case. Like he's one of the greatest coaches I think of all time in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
But I think to your point with Penn State, it'll be really interesting to see what happens. I, I'm curious who sticks around for that bowl game because if it's anybody other than Clemson or maybe Pitt, I'm like, oh man, mass exodus. No one's going to show up to this game. But you get it's a prime game against
Yeah.
a big name in Clemson, and maybe you get to stuff Dabo Sweeney in a locker. Like that'd be cool.
Right.
Sign me up for that.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's an interesting matchup because kind of like what you said when we started talking about this, it was supposed to be the national championship. And we're getting that in the what is it? The
Pinstripe Bowl.
Bowl. Yeah, the Pinstripe Bowl.
Cold weather.
Yeah,
Big Ten weather. There we go.
exactly. Exactly. So yeah, I'm actually looking forward to that. But like you said, it kind of depends on who's sticking around for the bowl games, which kind of makes bowl season iffy anyway. When we have exciting matchups, like who's going to actually play or
Mhm.
opt out. But we have a bowl game as soon as Saturday. Washington plays Boise State in the LA Bowl. That's Saturday, right? Yeah, the 13th.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
How is it this Saturday?
I know. It was like it's coming up quick. Things are kicking off like really quickly. So this
And
Saturday,
it's a good game.
yeah, it should be a good matchup, right? Hope Boise State wins.
I
But
I might disagree with you on that, but I
I know,
understand and
I
I
know.
appreciate it.
Yeah,
I'm for that. I'm for that though. Like for that energy. Well done.
right.
Um, that's a good game,
It is a good game.
man.
Yeah. I didn't know the LA Bowl was so, for some reason I thought it was a little later. But yeah, we kick off this Saturday with the LA Bowl. So we have a Big Ten game or matchup, not matchup, but a Big Ten represented game this weekend.
Yes.
And then we have to wait till December 26th. So we have Northwestern and Central Michigan, and then Minnesota versus New Mexico. Interesting matchups. I actually am intrigued by that Minnesota and New Mexico one. I was taking a
Oh
look,
yeah.
trying to preview all of them a little bit before we hopped on, and I actually find that one to be interesting. Plus, Northwestern playing a MAC team. That's always exciting. MACtion.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, and two things. One, Minnesota or New Mexico has played two Big Ten teams, and they're
Yeah.
1-1. I
Yeah.
mean that they're the team that got Deshaun Foster fired,
Right.
and so they beat the Jimmy out of UCLA,
Yeah.
and only lost to Michigan by 17. So that's not a gimme for Minnesota. And I was telling this to John on our show. It's these matchups in particular that these matchups and especially where it's like if you want conference respect, like you got to get what I call the layups. And I'm not saying Central Michigan or New Mexico are bad teams,
Right.
but you are going to be looked down upon if you lose these games. So like Minnesota and Northwestern, please don't lose these games, not just for your sake, but for the conference,
Yeah.
which
It's
one of
true.
them's going to lose. I feel it in my bones. It's probably going to be Minnesota because PJ. I love PJ Fleck, and he wins some big games, and then he sometimes follows it up with Group of Six nightmares, and you're like,
Yeah.
what did you just do, PJ?
I know. I'm a big PJ
Oh,
Fleck fan too, but it does seem like the type of game Minnesota could lose. And I'm with you. We want them to win these games, especially when we talk about, I feel like a big topic that comes up, especially when it's like Big Ten versus SEC, is like, okay, what does the bottom half of each conference look like? And these bowl games kind of speak to that. It's like, how are you performing and how are you winning these games? And that contributes to this ongoing conversation and discussion about like, okay, what does that middle and bottom tier look like of these conferences? So
yeah,
I get it.
yeah,
I mean, hopefully they come up with wins, but both of those games don't necessarily seem like obvious wins for either of those teams. Although I will
right.
say, and maybe you agree, Northwestern impressed me this season. I did not expect them winning as many games as they did.
Yeah, I got grilled for this, but I said preseason one of my predictions was Northwestern would go 6-6, and I was like, I don't know how, but this is like Northwestern's pattern. At least they were under Pat Fitzgerald, and I think David Braun
Right.
is awesome. Like I think he's a great, great young head coach, and I'm like somehow, some way he's going to go 6-6 and get to a bowl game, and he did. And I
Yeah.
agree with you. I actually think I like Northwestern's chances more than Minnesota's. If we're
Yeah.
going to pick one of them to get a win, I'd pick Northwestern.
I agree. Yeah. And then they even had a really interesting matchup. Not that that's what it's about, but the Northwestern versus Minnesota matchup that happened at the end of the
Hmm.
season. That was a really interesting one. I think I actually had picked Minnesota to win that game by just a few points, but Northwestern ended up coming up. So,
Yeah, I think it's the first time they won a neutral site game at Wrigley. as they've been doing the
Yeah.
whole Wrigley series.
Yeah.
Minnesota was their first win in
I think
that.
so
So
too. Yeah, I think so. So exciting stuff for Northwestern. And then so we talked about Penn State and Clemson, and then we have Illinois and Tennessee in the Music City Bowl.
if everybody plays that, this might be the most entertaining, one of the most entertaining, like two good offenses, two not very good defenses.
Right. Yeah.
Might light up the scoreboard on this one, depending on who plays. I hope Altmaier plays. I really like him a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Very entertaining. And I agree. I think this could be a really fascinating game. And it's already a really interesting matchup. Music City Bowl, isn't that in Tennessee too?
Yeah. So home game for Tennessee, but I don't know how far Illinois is from there actually, because I feel like, well, Illinois is more north than some of the other Midwest states, so it's probably pretty far. But
Probably, yeah. And
yeah,
then USC versus TCU in the Alamo Bowl. I mean, I have like some trauma with the Alamo Bowl, including TCU, but I think regardless, I think this is a fascinating matchup. I actually do. I think this is like both teams. Um,
yeah.
USC has improved this season, and offensively, they can be very explosive. I will be interested to see kind of how TCU responds to that.
Yeah, and TCU's kind of up and down,
They
right?
are
Like
some
they've
inconsistencies.
yeah, like they had some good wins, but then got throttled by BYU, but like closed out the season well. Like beat Houston, beat Cincinnati. That they're not bad teams.
Right.
So yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a measuring stick game for USC, I think.
Yeah.
Like is USC like on the cusp of getting to that next tier like we say they might,
Right.
or are they actually, is it just like, okay, Lincoln, like you had your fun but you're not actually where you think you are. um but yeah, I hope USC throttles them, but I can understand why you wouldn't want them to throttle them.
I mean, I get it for the conference. I will say that when it comes to
Yeah,
bowl games, I
yeah,
understand it for the necessity of the conference. I do. I
yeah,
do. I mean, it will be interesting to see how TCU responds to USC's offense. But USC's defense, I think, is taking a step in the right direction. It's just not where it needs to
mhm,
be to help their offense in the best way that they can. And you
yeah.
posed an interesting question with Lincoln Riley. Like, I the the entire conversation around Lincoln Riley and kind of how long he might be at USC, what's the next step he might be tempted to take, is an incredibly interesting one to me, just because I feel like it's consistent chatter. And like he was linked, I don't know if accurately or not, to the Penn State opening this season, was he not?
I He may have been. I feel like everybody's been linked to that job, so
Probably.
would not be surprised.
Probably. And then the NFL as well. I've heard, like, I don't know if that's
Yeah,
something like that's legitimately of interest to him, but like I consistently hear people talking about Lincoln Riley to the NFL.
that has been. I feel like ever since he got to USC, that's been
Yeah.
his. Like everyone's like he's going to go to the NFL. He's one of the greatest offensive minds. Here's my issue with Lincoln. I feel like he is all flash and no substance. And I have felt that since Oklahoma,
Right.
where you had these high flying offenses and then you hit a brick wall and like with anybody physical. And he made some just head scratching hires that everybody praised at the time. I still Alex Grinch, he was Ohio State's co-defensive coordinator for a year. We could not get rid of him fast enough. And everybody at USC was, or at Oklahoma and then USC was like, Alex Grinch, he's our savior. And I'm like, no,
Right.
no, he really is the Grinch who stole Christmas. Like he is not.
Right.
Yeah, no thanks. Get him out of here. And that Dan Lynn has been, I think he is a really good defensive mind. And so I think their defense is getting more on track.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I think to my question is, can you actually, you were called an elite coach before you should have been. Now it's like, can you actually prove that you are an elite coach?
Right. Yeah, and we've seen him obviously develop and work with pretty great quarterbacks, and that's, like, always been Lincoln Riley's thing is, like, it's the quarterbacks. We're seeing that with Mayava this season, like, he is explosive and he can play
Hmm.
really well. It's just a matter of piecing together everything around him and then on the defense as well. So, we're seeing Lincoln do what he does well with his quarterbacks and has for the last several years. But kind of like what you said, there's a lot of flash and there's a lack of substance.
Yeah, yeah. I will say these past two seasons, I think have been more promising to me than maybe his first few. And I know people will look at last year and be like, he went 7-6 last year. And it's like, listen, he was starting from, in a sense, ground zero. The,
Right.
the schedule was insane last year. It was, and he beat two SE, like he beat Texas A&M, he beat LSU. I didn't know how they were going to find 6 wins on that schedule a year ago, and they
Yeah.
did.
Right.
Um, and so what he's doing and kind of rebranding himself, rebuilding himself, it's certainly not where USC wants to be, right? Like USC wants to be where Oregon is right now.
Hmm.
That's not where they are. But I think I do like the progress. The question is, and I think to your point, how long is Lincoln going to stay?
Right. Yeah, it's fascinating. Like, is he going to stay long enough to get USC back to that level at the current pace that USC is moving upward with? Or is he going to go to the NFL before that ever happens?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's
Good questions.
fascinating. Yep, it really is. Okay, and then we have Iowa and Vanderbilt.
Okay, I said that Tennessee and Illinois might be the most fun. I actually think this might be my favorite
Yeah,
matchup.
yeah.
Maybe because I think Iowa might do some really painful things to Diego Pavia.
I know.
And
Yeah.
again, I have nothing against Pavia. Well, maybe a lot against Pavia. I don't know. Um, I love that defensive matchup against Vanderbilt's offense. I think it's gonna be really fun.
I agree. It's definitely going to be fun. And Iowa, it was like this consistent conversation with Iowa towards the end of the season, right? Like, oh, they're the best 7-4 team and they're the best this team. Like, because they
Hmm.
played like the games they lost was like a total of what, like 10 points or something like that, like the last 4 games that
Yeah.
they played, 4 or 5 games. So they're not getting blown out. Like they're
Hmm.
playing really well and they're competitive and they're playing hard. It's just like there are a few mistakes or a few things that don't go their way and they lose by a touchdown or they lose by a field goal or they lose by 2 points safety. And
Yep.
so it's they're a fun team to watch. And I definitely think against this Vandy offense, like what you were saying, is going to be really entertaining.
Yeah. And I think I was looking up Sagarin and oh, where is it? Sagarin and FPI. They're not separated by much in terms of like their power rating. Like
Hmm.
according to Sagarin, it's less than a 3 point differential. They're separated by 5 spots. Um, and then in FPI, it's a little bit more, but it's actually no, it's less than a 3 point differential. And just to give you context there, between Indiana and Notre Dame, it's a 3.7 point
Mm,
differential. Between Ohio State and Notre Dame, it's a 3.1 point differential in FPI. So
yeah.
like it's not unreasonable to think that Iowa upsets Vanderbilt.
No, I totally agree. And then we have Michigan versus Texas in the Cheez It Citrus Bowl.
I have no idea how this is going to play out because it's like which Arch Manning shows up and which Bryce Underwood shows up.
Yeah,
But
very
I
true.
I tend to think I think Texas is probably going to win and win big. I think Michigan has gotten exposed every time they've played a tier up. Like USC, it was not close. Against Ohio
Right.
State, it wasn't close. Against Oklahoma, it wasn't close. I think Texas is a tier above Michigan. I think that's going to be a rough game for Michigan.
Right. And Arch Manning has played better towards the end of the season, and
Mhm.
perhaps that carries through bowl season. And, he's just feeling, I think, more confident, having more experience, being a first year starter and whatnot. So I agree with you. I think it's kind of like a mismatch in terms of skill and kind of where each program is at. But I think this is one where if you brought it up in the beginning of the season, I don't know, a lot of people were really high on Michigan in the beginning of the season. Like, I kept hearing, like, Michigan to the playoffs, Michigan top 10 team and whatnot. And so this is kind of like one of those matchups where, like, it made sense in the offseason perhaps if Michigan was to continue or progress towards what everyone thought they would. But I do think Bryce Underwood kind of just needs some more time.
Mm. Yeah, I think Bryce. I'm curious how he continues to develop with Sharon Moore. I
Mhm.
think that's something that John and I both keep talking about. Is Sharon Moore, can he develop quarterbacks? I think that's the big question, and we're not sure. But
Yeah.
you know, we'll see. We'll see. I'll be intrigued to see if they're able to get Andrew Marsh loose, and if the running backs, if Justice Haynes plays in this one. There's chatter that he might be back, that he might be able to return for this game, but we'll see.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then our final one is the Las Vegas Bowl, where we have Nebraska and Utah.
I don't like
There's funky
Nebraska's
there's
chances.
funky stuff going on in Nebraska right now. Like,
Yeah, funky
just
is a good word for it.
yeah, there's funky stuff going on in Nebraska, and I don't particularly like them in this matchup. No offense to Nebraska, but I just I mean, I don't think Utah necessarily had the season we thought they would. I know a lot of people, again, were really high on Utah. They're going to win the Big 12 and whatnot, but I still think they're more competitive at this point than Nebraska.
Yeah, I agree, and a lot of firings happening, including
Yeah,
one, Mr. Rayola as the
right.
offensive line coach, which you've got the younger brother, the younger Rayola transferring out. There's a lot of questions about whether Dylan's going to stick around. Ah, man, I this feels like a Utah by 50 type of
Right.
game.
Right. Exactly. It feels like a game in which Utah could absolutely dominate and win, and Nebraska never really stands a chance. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
unfortunate. The whole Matt Rule thing is also another continuously fascinating discussion that I feel like takes place amongst Big Ten fans. It's like, when I don't necessarily like, there's progress has been made, like, in terms of record, but it's like, when is like the final straw of it not being enough?
yeah. Well, and you compare that, and it's not a fair comparison. But like Kurt Signetti has kind of ruined any
Yeah.
progress conversation. It's like, why can't you do what Kurt Signetti did? Well, because it takes time. He did it at Indiana. What are we
Right.
doing?
I know. So true. That's going to continuously be the comparison too. Like, why
Yeah.
can't this coach do it in this amount of time? Look at Signetti. So we can call him a unicorn, though, kind of like the exception to the rule, because usually these things
Yes.
do take
Yeah.
time. Coaches need time to rebuild and kind of get their program on the right track. Kind of what we were just talking about with Lincoln Riley as well. So
Hmm.
it's absolutely an unfair comparison, but it's still a fun one because, yeah, what if he can do it? Why can't these other programs at least come close to doing it?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Well, so kind of to recap, what bowl game are you most excited for? Is it that Iowa one or that Illinois one?
I probably Iowa Vanderbilt, with very close second Tennessee Illinois.
Yeah,
I
I agree.
think both those two.
I agree. And before I let you go, not necessarily, I mean, this is kind of related to the general landscape of college football, but I would love to hear your thoughts on Notre Dame opting out of their bowl game.
Oh man. Um, so I understand it for a lot of reasons. And it's easy to hate on Notre Dame, right?
Yeah,
I
most
think
people do.
it, yeah, most people do it. I said this yesterday on our show. I thought the playoff committee actually got the final result right.
Yeah.
and they got the whole process wrong. And if I'm a Notre Dame fan or a Notre Dame player or Marcus Freeman, they have every right to be furious with the process,
Right.
but they lost to A&M and Miami. So like the decision I fully support. Also, if the ACC does their conference championship right, Miami's actually the ACC champ and Notre Dame is in, not JMU. So it like there's a lot of things that worked against Notre Dame in this that I can sympathize with. Um, and I think if they had just released the bracket and never did the CFP rankings, my guess
Yeah.
is Notre Dame's playing in a bowl game that they're like miffed, but they're not like this angry. But like because like it's like they dangled the carrot in front of Notre Dame for like the past 6 weeks.
Right.
And it's like, oh, by the way, we're just gonna pull the rug out from under you. It's like, well, yeah, no one likes that. And so I understand like again, it's the right decision to have Miami in over them. And yeah, I can really understand the frustration and the rationale for opting out. And I think people who are saying, oh, like they're quitters, anything like that, I I have a lot of sympathy because it's one of the most painful ways to be told you're not getting in
Yeah.
is to be told you are probably going to get in, you're probably going to get in, you're probably going to get in. By the way, actually, you were never going to get in. It's
Right.
like that's dumb. So
Yeah.
I hate that they opted out, but I understand it.
Yeah, you're dangling the carrot analogy is actually a really good one because you're right. Like that it was communicated in a way that they were going to get in up until the final moment when they didn't actually get in. So the frustration is completely valid and I totally understand it. And it brings up I mean, again, it's not like totally Big Ten related, but it brings up an interesting point. Kind of, we were talking about realignment earlier. There's continuously talk about Notre Dame joining the Big Ten, um, and then finally joining a conference and the Big Ten making the most sense. Do you agree with that? Is that something that you would like? Or are there, in terms of realignment, are there other teams that you prefer in the Big Ten versus not?
Well, I think Notre Dame makes the most sense in a lot of ways. And I think now if you're getting to a 20 team conference, that starts to feel massive. But I keep thinking we're headed towards like almost a NFL model at some
Mhm.
point. You have a north by Northwest conference and a Southeast conference, and
Right.
it's AFC, NFC type of deal. But I've said I think the next two teams would be to get Notre Dame and Stanford. And the reason why Stanford is you get another West Coast team. It's a natural rival for Notre Dame, and it's a natural rival for all your West Coast schools. But then like Notre Dame is the big fish. And I that would be my way to go. Another one could be Notre Dame and Georgia Tech, because Georgia Tech extends you down to the south. But like you know that they want to bring teams in pairs. Notre Dame it's a no-brainer move, and I know
Right.
a lot of people will say we don't want Notre Dame anymore, or they've refused us too many times. If Notre Dame says we want to join a conference and we want to join you guys, guess what? Big Ten's going to listen.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point. And Stanford's a really interesting one because this has kind of been a continuous conversation I've had with guests on the show this season. And I don't know if Stanford has come up at all when they share their thoughts and opinions, but I could definitely see that being a move. And you're right, Notre Dame just makes the most sense, not only geographically, but kind of just who they are as a program and kind of what they would bring to the conference if they were to join a conference, which is, of course, kind of the main topic this week with them missing the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to
Yep.
join a conference. So,
Yes.
yes, fascinating stuff. Well, Zack, this has been super fun. You're great. This has been awesome. I really appreciate you taking time out of your morning to chat with me. Can you remind folks of where they can find you?
Yeah, Big Ten Huddle on YouTube. You can follow us on X. You can follow me individually as well as my co-host John Rhodes and our other co-host Jeff McMichael Great guys. We live stream Sunday nights, Tuesday nights, Thursday nights on YouTube. And yeah, we just love talking ball. So come join us those nights.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you guys for tuning in. I do really appreciate it. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel to keep up with all of the awesome content our creators are putting out every week. And I will see you guys tomorrow morning to talk more about these bowl game matchups. Thanks, you guys.